Part of the mission statement here at the Pioneer has always been to seek out awesome and unusual forms of training and exceptional examples of human performance. To that end, we really can't ignore Shaolin Kung Fu. In fact, I really don't understand why more athletes aren't turning to Shaolin Kung Fu for inspiration. In many ways, these are like real-life superheroes. They can do things like standing on their fingers in a handstand, or taking blows to the head with weapons without flinching, or throwing chopsticks through sheets of glass. And these aren't just one-off flukes, these are practicable and repeatable training methods that any of us can learn from and adapt into our own training. So let's take an in-depth look at the secrets of Shaolin Kung Fu. Okay, so before I go any further, I should address the rather large elephant in the room. That is that a lot of people who watch this will claim that Shaolin Kung Fu has had its day, that it has no practical application, that there are no martial monks left. They base this assertion on the fact that Shaolin Kung Fu is not a part of MMA, that no Shaolin monk has stepped forward to take on trained fighters and demonstrate the usefulness of their art. But this is really to miss the point. You see, Shaolin Kung Fu is not actually a fighting style first and foremost. It is a means to an end, that end being enlightenment and meditation and knowing oneself. The story goes that Bodhidharma noticed that his monks were wasting away, that they were so weak from meditation and neglecting their physical health that they weren't able to focus on their meditation, that they were falling asleep whilst they're supposed to be focusing. He rightly identified that body and mind are interdependent and that you can't strengthen one without strengthening the other, and therefore he needed to introduce some form of physical training to his monks. Therefore he came up with the 18 Lohan hands and sinew metamorphosis. So the 18 Lohan hands would focus on external power and strength and health, and sinew metamorphosis would focus on internal health and strength. And these would go on to become Shaolin Kung Fu and Shaolin Qigong respectively. And these two things combined with meditation are considered to be the three living treasures of Shaolin. So as you can see then, it's not all about beating the snot out of people. It genuinely was designed originally as a form of kind of moving meditation and a way to strengthen the mind and body. And you can't really deny that this does work. The fact that you can see these people doing head springs, performing incredible feats of flexibility, or like I say, doing a 2-finger handstand really should be enough to demonstrate that there is definitely some virtue in what they're doing. Does this mean that a Shaolin monk could beat a trained MMA fighter? Absolutely not, and in fact most Shaolin monks would admit as much themselves. These are generally gentle people, and fighting in tournaments for cash and fame doesn't really sit well with their philosophy. In fact, Master Wong Kyu Kit says that none of this is really worth all that much in a martial application without actually practicing in real fights. He admits as much. That isn't to say that the techniques themselves aren't valuable though, or that there isn't some kind of martial application to strengthening your finger to the point that you can jab it through someone's neck. There obviously is. So rather than just write it off as hokum, instead maybe we could learn from them and take the bits that apply to us and integrate them into our own training. And if you're predominantly interested in health and fitness and calisthenics and bodyweight moves and gymnastics, then there's a ton to learn here. So one thing that anyone can benefit from when it comes to Shaolin Kung Fu is their flexibility training. They use 18 styles called tong, gong, which is basically a form of Qigong focusing predominantly on flexibility and bending and contorting into unusual shapes. This is the kind of stuff you see where they lift one leg up by the head and then fall flat on it, that kind of thing. Again, it's kind of superhuman, circus act contortionist levels of flexibility. They train this along with their quickness and their lightness. Their quickness they practice by performing the same movements over and over again. This is classic martial arts. By rote learning their forms, they become quicker at executing those movements. At the same time, they stress the importance of keeping your breathing consistent at the same time as being able to deliver lots of punches quickly. They point out that many fighters, when they punch quickly, will become exhausted and out of breath. They practice focusing on their breathing whilst delivering those punches quickly, and that's why they emphasize the correct belly breathing from the abdominal. As for lightness, what we would refer to as agility, they use something called the plum flower formation when training. Here they start by drawing 5 circles, a foot in diameter each, on the ground in the shape of a plum flower. They'll then perform their moves, their forms, and spar, etc. while staying within those circles in order to train their footwork and agility. Over time, they'll then shrink the circles. They then replace those circles with upside down bowls that they stand on top of, and then finally they replace them with poles up to about 7 foot high, and this is where you see them practicing on those Shaolin poles. Of course, this is excellent for training their lightness of foot, their agility, their balance being something that's very important in Shaolin Kung Fu. They also have another training method called through the woods, where they stand among the poles and try and move quickly between them and perform forms and strikes, etc., without touching any of them. Most of us won't want to invest in 7-foot poles stuck in our gardens, although I would love that. But what we can do is take some bowls, turn them upside down and balance on those. So that's a great way of doing something similar to Shaolin training at home. Likewise, we could mimic the through the woods technique by hanging rope from the ceiling, anything like that. Tongzi also includes positions and forms for lightness, and I really like the idea of using a form made up of poses as a way of practicing balance and calisthenics. But the skill that the Shaolin monks are perhaps best known for is their ability to harden their body and take blows and strikes to that part of the body without flinching. We've all heard of the iron palm technique, where they can smash through rocks with their hands. There's iron finger, there's iron arm, where they can take blows to their forearms, snapping sticks and things. There's iron shin, of course, iron head, iron shirt, where they can take blows to the body. And the way that you train this is actually very simple. Once again, it's just a form of progressive overload. Basically, they'll cause a small amount of trauma to the bones, just enough to trigger regrowth and cause it to come back thicker and stronger, without being too traumatic that they actually injure themselves. We know that the bones are plastic in the same way as the brain and the muscles. Using a process called reabsorption and then reversal, they're able to basically break down the matrix and then build it up thicker and stronger. I made a whole video on bone strengthening, so check that out. I'll put the link in the description, and that'll give you more information on how that works. My granddad actually used to have me rolling rattan sticks up and down my shins. We had this cool, like, anime type relationship. But yeah, it hurts more than you think it does. Of course, Shaolin monks are also known for slapping their hands into buckets of sand or ice water. You can use any kind of firm surface. You can get things you can hang from your wall, as I have, fill it with sand, and then as part of your incidental training, see my previous video on that, you can just punch that every day to harden the knuckles. Hardening the knuckles is actually really worthwhile if you are interested in fighting, because that's really a weak point, and in a real fight, many people would break their knuckles right away. But actually, any kind of book or even just a wooden floor, performing knuckle press-ups, all of that will do the same thing. Shaolin monks will then apply a concoction called Deet Da Jiao to the area to encourage healing and speed progress. One recipe for this can be found in the complete book of Shaolin. I literally don't know what any of that means. But iron palm, iron shirt, iron head, they are not the real secret techniques when it comes to Shaolin training. Shaolin considers there to be 3 different types of force: soft force, hard force, and a combination of both. So soft force is the quick, the light, the loose strikes and perfect technique that we see when we practice our forms. The hard techniques are things like iron shin, where you can kick a tree 1,000,000 times until your shins are so hard and powerful that you can just plow through things. The combination of both is something slightly different, and here is where the Qigong comes in handy. So I actually studied Tai Chi for a year, and here we did Qigong at the end of every single session. Qigong looks a little bit like Tai Chi. It involves holding poses for a long time and then moving gently between them. And as you do this, you visualize energy moving through your body. So it sounds a little bit strange, but stick with me. The idea, according to the Shaolin monks and Kung Fu practitioners, is that you're channeling Qi, and that's what you're visualizing. You're channeling it going through your body, and you're breathing correctly, and you're supposed to be causing this kind of holistic health effect. Obviously, Qi is not proven by science. There's no research out there backing it up. Likewise, there's no evidence for meridians being blocked, etc. And so we might call into question how useful something like Qigong actually is. But then we see the guys stand on their fingers, and we realize that they must be doing something right. So much more impressive than the iron palm, for instance, is the Cosmos hand, which sounds ridiculously awesome. So basically, whereas with the iron palm you might hit a pile of bricks and smash through all of them, the Cosmos hand would allow you to hit the top brick and then only break the bottom one, leaving all the others, however many, on top of it intact. Likewise, the iron shirt technique, you can kind of cheat by just using lots of attacks on your own body in Deet Da Jiao, but actually if you incorporate the visualization, you can upgrade this to a much more impressive version, apparently, where you can repel attacks with blades and things. Essentially, it's by applying this visualization aspect that they believe you can really upgrade this into something superhuman. So if we don't believe in Qi, how might we explain what's going on here? Well, one possibility is that by visualizing in this way, you're actually strengthening the mind-muscle connection. And this is just a theory of mine, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I'll use an example in order to illustrate what I mean. So in Shaolin Kung Fu and in Tai Chi and many other internal martial arts, one thing you're often told to do is to focus on your dantian. This is supposed to be the center where you collect the most of your qi energy, and by focusing on that, you're supposed to move from your center, which gives you more power. The dantian is located a few centimeters below your navel, which also happens to be your center of gravity, and that's no coincidence. So now let's try an exercise often used in martial arts. So what you're going to do is find a sparring partner and then ask them to try and push you over, and as they do, focus either on your head or just focus on whatever, and then make a note of how they do. Then you're going to repeat the experiment, but this time you're going to bring all of your focus, all your attention to your dantian, to the center of gravity, and you'll find they find it much harder to push you over. And there's nothing magical going on here, of course. By simply focusing on your center of gravity, you're bringing your attention to that, and you're able to balance more correctly. At the same time, there's probably unconscious things going on, using stabilizing muscles. You might be lowering your center of gravity slightly. It's just a useful tool to help us concentrate in the right way to improve the way we're using our bodies. And we can see some interesting analogues for this all over fitness and martial arts. For instance, when you're trying to bench press, if you want to really perform your very best, imagine that you're throwing the bar through the ceiling as hard as you can. Obviously don't let go, you just visualize that that's what you're trying to do. Many people find that this technique helps them to exert a little bit more force. Again, there's nothing magical going on here. All you're doing is changing your intent, building up your will, and thereby able to recruit slightly more muscle fiber. It's the same thing when you concentrate on your glutes whilst you're in a squat in order to become more glute dominant rather than quad dominant. Just by switching your focus and your attention, you're able to improve your technique and your performance and your strength. Even the Qia, the spirit shout in martial arts, can be explained this way. In martial arts, it's described as helping you to exert more force and to startle the opponent. And actually what's happening is because you're shouting, you're creating a surge of adrenaline, and studies show that simply by shouting when lifting weights, we increase our strength by up to 31%. So you are becoming stronger, and it is by increasing your mind-muscle connection. So perhaps there's no mysterious force moving through your body, but perhaps that visualization has somewhat accidentally helped them to better engage with muscle throughout their body. So that might sound a little bit far-fetched. Simply by visualizing this stuff, they can strengthen their necks and their fingers and their heads. How could that possibly work? Well, just to stretch this idea a little bit further, there has been some recent research to suggest that the way that the fascia is laid out has some overlap with the way that the meridians are portrayed in traditional Chinese medicine. So the fascia, or myofascia, is a kind of connective tissue that acts like a film wrap and surrounds all the muscles and joints and even the organs and holds everything in place. What's recently been found is that it also contains its own smooth muscle cells, and that it can actually potentially help with exerting force during movement. So what's possibly going on here is that through visualization, perhaps they're increasing their mind-muscle connection to the point that they can actually engage this part of their body. And there's all kinds of little parallels and correlations within their writing and their training that makes it seem like this is at least possible. I'm not saying that's definitely what's going on, and I'm certainly not saying that we need to accept every aspect of Qigong. I'm not saying necessarily that we need to accept that Qi healing is real, for instance. I personally have a hard time swallowing that. I'm just saying that perhaps this kind of training has enabled them to access strength and perform with their bodies in a way that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And that might explain why they're able to do things like two-finger handstands. And if it sounds absurd, then remember that Wim Hof basically did the same thing, taking conscious control over his own autonomic nervous system, which no one thought was possible. So let's not completely rule it out. And this is also why the focus and the determination and the grueling training of the Shaolin monks is such an integral part of their routine. They train something like 3 or 2 hours in the morning, and then the same again in the afternoon after a short 30-minute power nap, at least 6 days a week. That's pretty intense. A lot of this stuff will involve really grueling, boring work, like running up huge numbers of steps or standing in horse stance for really long amounts of time. By doing this, they're building will and determination, and at the same time visualizing their muscle control. And so it's no surprise that they can pull off incredibly cool feats. So however they manage it, it seems fair to say that Shaolin monks, through sheer grit and determination, have managed to achieve some kind of insane control over their mind and body, and we should definitely give them props for that. And we should consider learning from them where we can, and maybe incorporating some of these ideas into our own training. Certainly I'm going to be researching this a lot more. There's a whole lot more to Shaolin training that I haven't had time to cover in this video. For instance, there's training that involves pulling nails out of planks of wood, bo ding gong, or shaking down trees, bao shu gong, or performing head springs, ji di gong. If these are things you're interested in and you'd like to hear more about, then of course stay tuned to The Bioneer, subscribe, let me know in the comments down below if there's anything I missed or that you'd like me to cover in future. Let me know what you think of Shaolin training and of Shaolin Kung Fu in general. Thanks a ton for watching, guys, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.